Hi, I'm Carol Biaggi. Welcome to Bloomberg's Masterclass, the show that travels to universities across the country to hear what business students, professors, and top-name guest lecturers have to say about the biggest issues facing corporate America. We recently visited the University of Florida's Warrington College of Business to sit in on a case study of a momentous weekend in U.S. business history. It was back in mid-September when Ken Lewis and John Thain decided to do a deal that helped change the face of the U.S. financial system. The title of the class, Impulse, Inspiration, or Intuition, Bank of America's Saturday morning decision to buy Merrill Lynch. The class was part of a course given by Bruce Furster, president of South Beach Capital Markets. Mr. Furster has been teaching a course on capitalism at Warrington for the past several years. Two special guests joined the class that day. Win Smith Jr. is a former chairman of Merrill Lynch International, executive vice president of Merrill Lynch, and member of the Executive Management Committee. He is also the son of Winthrop Smith, who was a pillar at Merrill Lynch for more than a generation and is credited with bringing Wall Street to Main Street. Win Smith is currently the majority owner and president of Sugarbush Ski and Golf Resort in Vermont. Smith remains a vocal critic of past management at Merrill and is a sought-after voice for his insight on corporate governance. The other guest was Jim Ladinsky. Jim is currently president of Corporate Securities Advisors, a consulting firm that specializes in expert witness testimony in bankruptcy cases like Enron. Jim was a principal at Morgan Stanley and also held managing director positions at First Chicago Capital Markets and A.G. Becker. A large portion of the class was Q&A, and we'll pick up there with the students' question on a theme that remained constant throughout the morning, corporate culture.
I think you can keep it partially. I mean, there is a question. There's a reason why, Wall Street firms weren't allowed to be corporations, much less public corporations, for many years. That only happened in the 1970s. Merrill became a corporate entity in 1958, became a public corporation in 1971. But after 1971, the vast majority of our employees were shareholders. They were shareholders, and I think it was more than monetary. I think it was attitudinal. We really believed that it was our company, and we also believed we had an obligation, the people that gave us the jobs, to the people that worked for us, and to the future generations. And that came about, again, through leadership. It came about when I sat with Dan Tully as the CEO, and he had us in a room as a team, and we argued. We had the ability to comment on somebody else's, structure, somebody else's business, whether we were going to take the risk. And we were free to debate and argue as partners. And at the end of the day, his only rule was when we make a decision, we go out as a team. But in that, there could be heated debate. So I think attitudinally, that's important. But it's harder. It's harder. And, when you're playing with other people's money, the old Milton Friedman rule is people spend other people's money differently than they spend their own is really true. So if you have a trader sitting on a $10 billion book, they don't, that's paper, that's like playing a video game. It's not your own money. And I think people like John Whitehead and John Weinberg at Goldman argued for years not to let Goldman go public because when you're spending your own money and it's really at risk, you think about the world very differently. So I think it's key. I don't know that you're going to go back to partnerships, but I think you really have to build in internal governance and internal attitude that people realize they're not just playing video games, they're playing with real money.
Let's take the Merrill Board of Directors. If we read each individual's bio, we would go, wow, great accomplishments, started out, rose up to lead a major Fortune 500 company, very impressive individually. What happens to those 15 individuals when they get in an air-conditioned room on the 40th floor that they can't act together the way they acted when they were CEOs?
Yeah,
you've sat in that room. What happened?
We're on the record here. I can't tell you that. but it's certainly not what you hope will happen always. And, I think there was a great study I read years ago at Harvard Business School about groupthink. And, some of the worst decisions have been made by groupthink where everybody nods their head and nobody is really allowed because of the culture to object. And, how are boards selected, frankly? How the CEO selects the board, right? There's a nominating committee, but it's fake. Okay, they select people They select people who are going to look good on the board. Either they're going to, have diversity, or they're going to have people that, have good pedigrees. But they're not selecting people to challenge them. They're not selecting people who are going to be really independent. Now, I'm not sure how that happens, but I think it has to happen. And I would say that one of the things the SEC and any regulator should think about is, what is the process going to be going forward? The European model of having an independent chair, a real independent chair other than the CEO, nobody likes that, because that's threatening. That is threatening. But maybe we should be considering that. There have been a lot of gadflies who have, tried to get cumulative voting put in, and nobody wants cumulative voting, because then I can get all my votes to get you off the board. How many boards are actually unelected? Very, very few. So I think it's a complex question. I don't know the answer to it, but I do think that strong CEOs, would like to have strong boards. Not radical people on the board, but people who are going to challenge them.